Good evening. My name is Dr. Susan Feneck. I am the CEO and founder of Juvenile Justice Impact. And tonight we have with us the one and only TrinaMarie Shaw, United States of America's Mrs. Nevada 2022. Thank you so much for coming on. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here and to talk with you today.
Thank you so much. We are going to be focusing our podcast tonight on mental health and healthy minds. And actually, TrinaMarie came to our workshop that we had through Juvenile Justice Impact called Healthy Minds. So we thought it would be fitting to call our podcast Healthy Minds tonight.
Absolutely. Life is all about having a healthy mindset. I'm a firm believer the older I get, you have to be intentional about what does that mean to have a healthy mindset and what do you have to do in order to have that healthy mindset.
And I see that you have on your website, you have mental health facts and statistics. And how did you become so involved in mental health? Because it is such an incredibly important topic, whether they're youth, teens, adults, it's across the board, it's critical.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate that. For me, honestly, my mom suffered from mental health illness. So did her mom, my grandmother. I never got to meet her. And it affected me and my brother for years. And it was something that I said I would never, ever talk about. My brother was more open, and he would be telling people, and I'm like, you better stop telling people about what happened. And he's like, I'm just telling my business. And I said, well, if you're telling your business, you're telling my business, so quit telling my business. And he was like, okay. So he was my older brother. He loved me, and he just said, okay, whatever. And I just kept it aside for so long, and eventually it took a toll on me. So that's why I'm so passionate. I feel like that's my purpose in life, is to not only create more awareness around mental health, but to create more awareness around how to eradicate the stigmas that's associated with mental health, because then we will start tackling depression, anxiety, and reducing suicidal rates.
Exactly. And that was one of the things that we did. One of the exercises that we did at the Healthy Minds Juvenile Justice Impact workshop was, remember we all did a vision board?
Yes. Encouragement board.
Yes.
Encouragement board. And I loved it. It's so awesome. And I have to be honest with you, I kind of took that part, and that's like a part of, like, when I go speak at schools and stuff like that, I do the encouragement board as well. So I did the community building. Remember, I brought that, the community building exercise with the youth. Because youth are hard. They're like our worst critics. So getting their attention is very difficult. So that was always fun. And then I like to add an encouragement board. And it's really been, I feel like the youth embraces it because of the positivity of the words that they put on the board.
And it was really nice to see, because they were going through all of those magazines and clipping out things. It was a lot of fun, and they were like, "Hey, I got a really cool thing here." You know what I mean? They were all showing their vision boards. And remember, we had a contest.
They loved it so much, and they were so creative. And what the words that they came up with, as far as what they would share with their friends, which also was a reminder of words they could tell themselves, was amazing.
Yes, and that was one of the important things that we did, and you also spoke highly about that at the workshop. Was it's not only if like they were feeling depression or anxiety or suicidal ideation, like if they were not even feeling those things, if a friend was, then what do you do?
What do you do, and how do you recognize it? Right? How do you recognize it? And then another important key factor is when someone shares something with you, right? When they're friends, because they're young. So when their friends share something that's pretty major, pretty heartbreaking, that weighs a lot, it's like an anchor. When they share that with them, how do they respond? How do they deal with it?
Exactly, because that might be the only person that they tell.
Yes. And that, and I forgot who said this, but I love it, and I continue to say it, is that I'd rather, because, you want want to be that loyal friend. So they share something with you. You're like, oh, you can't tell anybody. So you want to be that loyal friend because you're like, oh my God, this is so heavy. I'm going to be loyal. I'm going to hold the secret. But then it's too much weight on the person who's dealing with it. And it's also weight on you too. Hey, these kids are not licensed therapists. But I remember, I forgot who it was and said exactly, but it said, I'd rather have someone I'd rather have a friend that's upset with me, but is still
alive.
Here, right?
Yeah.
Versus, I'm going to hold on to the secret and be loyal, and they're no longer with us. And I'm just like, that is so true. And I say that all the time to the youth. I'd rather have them upset with me, and they're still here. And I'm like, I don't have to tell you what the heaviness is, because we naturally know when someone tells us something that it's like, okay, this is heavy. This is not right. This is too much. And I'll say it here, molestation, whatever, abuse, whatever, anything major like that. You have to speak up. And you have to, I tell them, we all have one adult that we trust.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go find that adult, and you have to tell the adult, and you have to let them know, I don't know how, I don't want them mad at me, be completely honest, like, I don't want them mad at me, like, they're my good friends, or they're not my good friend, whatever. But I know they need help, and you have to let that adult and get some help.
Exactly.
Because the last thing you want is for something to happen to them, and now you're carrying the weight because you wish you would have spoke up.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the things we were talking about right before we went live is the holiday season.
Yeah, it's a tough season right now with depression and anxiety. And a lot of people don't even know what depression and anxiety is, to be honest with you, especially when they're younger. They have no idea. They just know they're like moody, they don't want to be bothered. And this is when suicide rates increase is during the time of the year. And one thing that you have to start paying attention to is if the person doesn't want to be bothered, they want to be by themselves. This is it should be a joyful time of the year.
But it's also, right, and it's also a very difficult time of the year for, even look at this past year. I know so many people that lost so many loved ones from COVID. And we're coming up on the holiday season, and it's just, it's hard.
Agreement.
It really is.
It's their first year without them being involved or part of the season, right?
And you just never know when someone's had a bad day. You just don't know what they're doing, and sometimes someone might be reacting in a different way than you would expect, or maybe something's out of character, or it's just everyone has something that they're coping with.
Right. And here's the thing. Life is about feeling. So they tell us, right, in order to really feel love, you have to be open and feel, right? So you have to feel. You have to open yourself up. But opening yourself up can cause pain because you opened yourself up and you don't have those barriers or those walls to protect you from getting hurt. So if you think of that, but if you open yourself up and you find that person, it can be one of the best relationships ever because you've completely like, hey, this is who I am, take me as I am. And when you find that person that takes you who you are, it can be so magnificent, so awesome.
Yeah, and you find it's so hard. If someone can find someone they trust or love or even a mentor and people that they know that they can count on to talk to them about what's concerning them.
Right. And then when they lose that person, it's devastating. It's devastating. And so we have to, as a society, have to stop saying, oh, get over it. You have so much to be thankful for. Or, I know, and I say this, and I also say stuff, they're in a much better place. They might be in a much better place. But you still got to give that person time to feel and to grieve because they had an intimate relationship with that person. And sometimes you might not even know the person, but because they were a mentor, I have like online mentors, I call them virtual mentors, people that I respect. Tony Robbins is one of them, right? Never met him, but because of what he stands for, what he represents, I respect. So if something ever happened to him, like it would hit me hard. I don't have to be in your presence to like feel some type of connection. So to say, oh, just get over it, or they're in a much better place, it's like, yeah, I know that's true, but I'm still hurting.
There's a
And you're telling
there's a grieving process.
Yeah. And people need to go through it. So to tell the person not to experience the grievance of it is it's worse. It does more harm than anything. Because just like you say, oh, once you cry, and I've been there, I cried and all, okay, I feel better. Or I vented and I talked about it and like, okay, now I feel better because I got off my chest. It's the same concept. You have to allow the person to grieve. You be there for them and you don't want them to stay there so long. One of my favorite things to say, one of my favorite quotes is, it's okay to not be okay. Just don't unpack your bags and stay there.
That's
like, I want you to experience it, but then we can't stay there forever.
I couldn't agree more. And what do you have on your T-shirt?
Oh, perfectly imperfect.
Thank you. Because what do? We put so much pressure on ourselves to have such high standards.
Yeah.
And I mean, we self-care, we go to the gym, we try to eat right, we do all these things, and to be in shape and to be healthy. But a lot of the times, I mean, for example, I can't even begin to imagine like how much pressure you must be under at times with this incredible title.
Oh gosh, thank you. It is a lot of pressure.
And how do you cope with the pressure? I mean, I know you eat well. You're obviously in wonderful shape. What is it?
That.
What is it that you're? There's a difference between a beautiful person, but a person who's beautiful aesthetically, like yourself. You're drop dead gorgeous. You're beautiful, but at the same time, also inside of you, your heart, your soul, what you stand for, is even more beautiful.
I'm about to cry. I get goosebumps. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that.
Seriously, because looks only go so far,
Right.
and we were just watching, was it Mrs. Universe the other night? And you look at all of these contestants and all of these women that are going for the crown, so to speak, and they look for inner and outer beauty.
Yeah.
And you're the whole package, and I just love the fact that you stand so much for mental health, and I love so much that you've supported Juvenile Justice Impact because of the youth that we're serving.
God, yes.
And
yes.
I'll just never forget that workshop. I mean, they're all special in their very own unique way, but just having you there was just incredible, and we got to meet a lot of really nice people in the community, didn't we?
We did. It's funny because I remember this is probably about, God, I'm telling my age right now, but it probably was about maybe 16, 17 years ago. One of my first, I would say, true careers was human resources. I spent over 15 plus years in HR, right? In some form of HR, whether it was training, development, mentorship, leadership, 15 plus years. I remember one of my prior girlfriends at that time worked at the same company, and she had a heart for animals, and I do too, don't get me wrong, but she had a heart for animals. And I used to go, oh my God, it used to drive me crazy. I'm like, wow, people are more sensitive and more concerned about animals. Not to say that you should not be, but then they are the people. And it just blew my mind at that age, and this was in my 20s, right? I'm like early 20s. And I just said, wow. And she goes, no. She's like, I know. She goes, you have a heart for people. And I said, I do, because I'm like, how can you not? How can you love? Not to say that it's wrong to love animals, because I do. I love dogs, and they're therapeutic, right? I tell people who deal with things, go get you a dog, because they do bring life and joy to you. So I'm not saying anything negative, but sometimes it blows my mind when people love animals more than they love the human being. And they're like, oh, they're so innocent. I said, but no, that's because all those dogs can get mistreated too. Don't get me wrong, because they can. But I'm like, you don't know what that person did to as a child. I'm living proof. You have no idea what that person been through as a child.
Mm-hmm.
No idea. You don't know what they've been through as an adult or whatever. I had to lay off people that are amazing people, and I saw how much it broke their heart, and it changed their perception of society. That was their trauma. They're like, I gave everything that I had to this company for you to come into the office to tell me, sorry, we're letting you go because we're downsizing.
Oh, terrible.
I've seen those. I can't do this anymore.
I've seen those days before. It's incredibly heart-wrenching.
It is. And I knew these people, like, I remember one person got into, he had a little vendor. I worked at this one company, I'm not going to say the name, but it's in the car rental industry. I was in the HR, and I had to go tell the person we're letting him go. He just happened to be the last person we were hired, because a lot of times that's how it works. You're just last on the list. Right. And he goes, he had a family. No, is it because he goes, I'll pay back the damages? And I said, no, it has nothing to do with that. You were just the last person to be hired. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, I went home, and that, even though I don't know him, but beyond that moment, and he didn't work there that long, but it hit hard, because I'm like, I'm not only affecting him, but I'm affecting his family. Mm-hmm. And I took it like I am doing it, even though I had no decision, no choice of who was getting laid off, who's getting let go. It still affects me, and I'm like, I love people. I love people. I just love people.
And we can see that in everything that shines through you. I have a question. How did you get involved? How did you get involved in becoming the TrinaMarie Shaw, United States of America's Mrs. Nevada 2022? Like, did you just wake up one day and be like, you know what? Hey, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna give this a shot because I'm having a really good hair day. I don't know.
Right. Oh gosh. Oh boy. I wish it was that simple, but honestly,
I love the path of people. I love to know how did you get to where? Because we saw each other last week at the in another event, and in you were wearing this beautiful crown, and I was thinking to myself, how did she get to wear that beautiful crown? I've got to know the story. Tell me.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You know what? I was asked by a director in 2012, and I said no. In my mind, I was like, oh, because even when I was a young girl and I would see stuff on TV, and I'm like, oh, because I was an athlete. I ran track. I played basketball. I was really good at basketball. Played, flag football. I was that person. I grew up, all my cousins, which is your best friend, so to speak. I have 3 brothers, and I have, on my grandfather's side, I'm the only girl. So I was this huge, tall boy.
Oh, so was I.
Oh, yeah. I would, even though I had cheerleading friends, because, I love people, but I was like, oh, no, that's you, girl. No, I'm not going to do cheerleading. That is so you. Me, mm-mm. And then obviously I love fashion, so people would think because I love fashion, I like makeup, oh, you'll be this beauty queen. No, not really, because I'm a tomboy. I just like to be dolled up. I would tell people I'm a tomboy that likes to get dolled up. That's it. And then I, for some reason, started connecting with people that was in the pageant industry, and they would be amazing women, be so involved with their community. And then I started inquiring more about it. They're like, oh my God, you'd be great because you already like to get glam because that's part of it. And you're so involved with your community. You get to promote your platform. And so when I heard that, I get to promote my platform. Now, at that time, I didn't know what it was. I mean, it kind of had a deal with community advocate. I don't care what it was. I just like to support the community. I said, oh, maybe I might give this a try. Let's just see what this is about. So I did that about 2 years ago. I just kind of went in. I'm going to be honest, I didn't give 100% because I was trying to, I have a little bit of trust issues. So I was like, let me see what this is really about. Is it really, because the way they portrayed on TV is girls being catty and they fight and they don't get along. So let me just see. Because I don't have time for that drama.
Right?
Not at all. No.
You'll wind up on a reality show, right?
Yeah, no. And then after I finished it, I said, okay, I could totally do this, because after the end of that first year, no matter what had happened that first year, I said, I grew. I did something I said I would never do, and it pushed me outside my comfort zone, and it helped me to figure out what my purpose really was and to define my voice, which was mental health, eradicating the stigmas associated with mental health so that people felt more encouraged, inspired, empowered to say, you know what, I see that you need help. I'm going to give you some help, and I'm not going to hold it against you. There's no repercussions. And because of that, people are now like, hey, I'm having a rough time right now. I need a little bit of help. Because I don't feel like I'm going to get backlash, and people are not going to look at me like I'm weak or I'm insecure or I can't handle it. I just lost somebody. I just went through divorce. Financial issues, whatever it is, I just went through life, basically.
And it's so hard for someone to take that step to talk about them needing that kind of support.
Oh, it's extremely hard.
And that's where you're talking about the stigma. And, it's just that way somehow. And, and people, like you've said, they have such a hard time with coming forward and saying that they need help, whether it's a grief or an illness or some sort of a loss or some sort of a trauma that they had, 10 years ago that they're still holding bottled up inside of their mind that's eating away at them every single day.
Right.
And it takes people like yourself to help people overcome that stigma. And
thank you.
And I think that, as we're projecting the year coming up, 2022, with the workshops that we're going to have, and I've been invited to speak at different schools and so on and so forth. And, one of the things I definitely want to have probably more than one. I'd probably like every quarter, definitely focus on mental health and mental health issues, because you saw, you were there firsthand. We had, you were there. We had people from Safe Nest. We had the Las Vegas Metro Police Department there. We had the Police Athletic League there. Yeah. It was just such an incredible turnout, because everyone who was under that roof for that workshop understood the gravity of the help that these kids need. And that's my mission. You're talking about how things are meant to be in life. And, I realized several years ago that this was going to be what I do. And the whole purpose behind these podcasts are to bring people like yourself. And like earlier this afternoon, we spoke with Huntington Learning Center to talk about youth and schools. And they were talking about different issues that are going on in the school systems. But it's just to bring awareness to our youth and our community. And there might be one person who listens and is hugely inspired by what an incredible and magnanimous person that you are, to follow your lead and think that it's okay. And I'm sure at the same time you've saved so many lives by helping them understand their mental health concerns.
Yeah.
And I would like. Well, no, what's that?
Oh, no, go ahead.
If I were to ask what?
Oh, no, keep going. I'm going to ask you after you finish.
I was going to ask you, can you tell us all about your platform? Tell us a little bit more about your platform and how you came up with the platform. What is your platform, and how you've gotten other people involved?
Thank you. So what I was going to say, which is going to lead into that, to answer that question is, so if you were to ask me, how do you know you had a good reign, right, as the title holder? Mm-hmm. And for me, is as my life purpose. I'm like, if I could save one person, because I believe in changing perspectives, society's perspectives, even one person at a time. But if I could save one person where they decided that they wanted to live, they had the inspiration, they felt empowered, they felt encouraged to like, hey, let me go ahead and ask for help, I've had a successful reign. Because that's how much one person's life means to me.
Of course.
And so when it comes to how I came up with this, because of the mental illness I was in, I fell in between my mom and her mom, my grandmother, that I, like I said, never met. That I grew up thinking, oh my God, is it going to affect me? Because it's now going to be third generation, right? That affected me how I even interacted with my child, with my son, like certain things. It's a fear. Even when I interact with other people, I didn't let them in. I didn't tell them everything, whether it be girlfriends or someone that I dated. Commitment issues. When we talk about mental health, people don't realize mental health affects the way we interact with one another. Mm-hmm. And even though we're taught to be so strong, if we've never addressed those issues, you see the person, they never want to settle down. It might be a little bit more that they just want to be a player. Like, right. I'm going to be honest. Like, it might be a little more than that. They're fearful of getting hurt and rejected. Mm-hmm. Right? They're fearful of the person that they give their heart to or think that they should love them. All of a sudden, one day wake up and they don't give them that love.
Or they're
people
gone.
Don't know this, but yeah, my mom had a mental illness. And one time I went to go see her at my grandfather's house, on her dad's house, and my grandfather on my dad's side took me to go see her, but because she wasn't on her medication and she wasn't in her right mind, I went to see her, that she literally walked away from me. And I just remember crying, like, hysterically. Like, so part of it was when I remember I was dating, and someone pointed out to me, like, wow, you never stayed in a relationship longer than 2 years. Not that I always had a boyfriend, like I wasn't promiscuous like that, but I never stayed in a relationship longer than 2 years. For some reason, when it got to the 2-year mark, it was like, there's a reason why we shouldn't be together. We need to break up.
It was like an expiration date.
It was an expiration date. And I didn't realize it's because I had this fear of, what if you wake up one day and you don't want to be with me anymore? Aww. What if one day that you feel like I'm not the person for you? It was like, I couldn't take that heartbreak. So it was easier for me to break up with you before you had a chance to say, this isn't working. And I remember, and I'm sorry to guys, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of boyfriends, but I did break some hearts, and I'm so sorry to y'all.
Oh my
I just
goodness.
had my own issue. Like, I'm being honest. Like, I did not know. I didn't know until later when I started doing research, and I was like first going to school for child psychology, and then it was into HR, and then we're psychologists in HR. Even in real estate right now, I'm a psychologist. I tell people I'm a counselor. But I understand it because I've been there, and then I went to school. I got my master's in human services. Took a lot of counseling classes, so I get it. So I'm like, and then I said one day when I said, why do I always put people before me? Because even though I was like that in a relationship, I still was a people pleaser. I wanted to make everybody happy, and I said, why do I put everybody before me? Everybody before me for my own goals, my own needs, and they're like pure needs and good things. And I said, okay, I got to go talk to somebody because I got to figure out how do I break this. So that's why I'm an advocate for mental health, and that's why my platform is called Sparkle, Turning Darkness into Light, because it doesn't have to be so dark. Mental health is not a dark topic. The more we talk about it, the more that people go, oh yeah, I got a therapist, because quite a few people have a therapist, but they're not going to tell you because they're afraid of what people are going to say. But we're like, hey, let me tell my therapist tell me, because I tell people, let me tell my therapist tell me. One time we had a quiet session. She decided to stay quiet. It probably was only for a couple minutes. Girl, I thought it was like 10 minutes. And I said, I'm sorry, why are we like not talking? And she goes, oh, does this bother you? And I said, yeah, I'm very uncomfortable. I was like, why are we? And then she started telling me, she's like, yeah, there's characteristics of high functioning anxiety. And I'm like, what? So I had to go look it up. And then I looked it up and found out Oprah deals with it. Like,
really?
Kim Kardashian? Oh, yes. So we're people that we get stuff done because we're always on the go and we're so busy, and because we're also people pleasers. But if we don't learn to turn it off and say no, or I need a break, or it's okay to relax and set boundaries, we get burnt out. And there's days, and I can tell you that, where I'm like, I want to run away because it's too much. I can't deal with it. Because I said yes to so many things that I'm just like, this is way too much. We're like Captain Save people. We feel
no, I am at fault for that myself, I have to admit. Seriously.
And a lot of people don't realize that they probably have...
Wait, what did you say? Captain Save... What did you say? Captain what?
Well, Well, so if if you're from when I told you I lived in, well, I don't know if this was before we started recording, but I lived in predominantly all white neighborhoods, predominantly Filipino neighborhoods, predominantly black neighborhoods. Like I'm like very, but when I lived in predominantly black neighborhoods, we used to call it Captain Save. I'm gonna let you. You know what that next word should be? Can I say that word on this show or no?
Sure, why not?
Okay, Captain Save a Hoe.
Okay, well, we just put that out there. Maybe we should see if there's, I don't know if there's a hashtag for that one, but we can. Oh my God.
I feel like you have to save everybody, even
everyone.
You have to save it. You have to save everybody. And not that everybody are hosts, but it's just a little funny thing to say. But yeah, it's like you feel like you have to save everybody. So you put the whole world on your shoulders. So you say yes to everything because you feel like if you don't do it, who else is going to do it? And that's like, no. We can't do it all by ourselves. So me going through the therapy and everything, I realized, okay, I have to learn to tell people no. And the people who really genuinely support me are going to understand. And the ones that don't, I'm going to find out real quick that it's not about me. It's all about them. And I really don't need them in my life anyways.
Now, I see on your website you have mental health facts and statistics. I'm clicking on it right now. And you put down the 15 leading causes of death in the United States 2018, posted April 19th, 2020. And it's just incredible, some of these numbers that you have.
Yeah. And it's actually, so it's a few years behind from when they actually post it and they get the data, because they do the data and it takes them a minute for them to actually process it.
No, that's fine.
2020 we found out, but this is from 2018. And I need to actually update it, so thank you for pointing this out. But yeah, Nevada, even for Nevada,
no, these numbers are good. I mean, whether it's 2015, 2018, 2020, it still gives people it still gives people an idea of the level of severity. I mean, because 2018
we never talk about it.
Right.
We never ever talk about it. Do you realize? I'm not going to say this. Okay. You have your doctor. You have doctors, pilots, that military personnel, professionals, or service members, however you want to call them, depending on their rank and what position they serve, cannot say anything that they're having a rough moment mentally. Because if they're military, they take the risk of getting kicked out.
Really?
That means they're losing. Oh, absolutely. So you could be in the military for so many years, right? And then you retire after so many years, you get more benefit. So you're working towards that goal. And life is hard. People act like in 15 years, you're not supposed to experience any type of life that's going to hit you hard and set you back where you're like, hey, I need someone to talk to. But if they do encourage it, don't get me wrong. They definitely encourage you. Military is getting better when they encourage it, but it still affects if you're going to stay within the branch or not. Because what they don't want is for them to say, oh, they can't handle it anymore. Same thing in career-wise. You could be a director looking to get promoted to VP. You're just going through divorce, lost a child, lost a whoever, or whatever the issue may be. You're having a rough moment. That person's not going to say, I need help, because their boss is going to say, oh, she or he can't handle it.
And that's where we're talking about the stigma. And that's where we're talking about the stigma, right?
Yeah, that's where we're talking about the stigma. So why would that person say, hey, I need help? Because the world is telling them you need to figure out how to get past it. And if you think faith-based wise is, like I said, I'm a Christian, so that was also hard on me. Faith-based wise is like, oh, you pray about it, you leave it at the altar, God is going to work it out. But the hard part was, like, I knew what the scripture would say, and I had went through a divorce. So I went through a divorce that really broke me, because I was like, oh my God, here's somebody else that I love that's like rejecting me, right? Remember I told you my mom? Now at this time, my husband, he's rejecting me. What's wrong with me? I'm giving back to my community. I'm serving in my church. I am educated. I am smart. I am not bad to look at. Like really? And you don't want this marriage? It broke me to the ground. Like, I was like, oh my gosh. But guess what? I put a smile on my face. I went to work, and there was days I had to close my office door and break down and cry, because it was so much on my shoulders that I could not handle it. It was so much on my shoulders. It took me to a very dark place. I remember crying to God and praying, like, why? How can you put so much on one person? And I'm thinking I'm being a good person in society. Why? And then he reminded me of the journey of me praying on my master's degree, and I thought it was going to be an organizational leadership and development. He says, nope, you're going to go to School of Counseling and Human Services at Capella University. And I was like, oh, okay. Didn't know why. But then later in life, even after divorce, right? After divorce, because I went through that dark moment, and I go, I get it. And Mark Twain said there's two very important days in someone's life: the day they were born and the day they found out why. And when I found out my why, it changed everything.
That is really incredible. And how are you working with youth right now? And I'm thinking what we could do coming up in the calendar year is we definitely have you join our mental health workshops, and you're obviously going to be more than welcome to join all of them because we just love your presence and your energy. And what is it that you see in youth that has changed over the years?
Wow, from me being outside and playing to now the youth are inside and on the computers, on their iPads.
There you go.
And,
and
this is not me to throw a dab at the parents because I am a parent. I have my son at a younger age, so it's a little bit different than parents at my age that are having kids. But I'm like, and Vegas is hard because it gets really hot. But you got to find ways for these kids to interact with other kids that they're not on their computers or their iPad. They have plenty of time for that, but they have to experience being around other people. God did not create us to be by ourselves.
And
they're like, oh, he didn't. Even if you're playing a computer game, because, they got their headphones and they play computer games with other people in different countries and throughout the world, it's not the same thing. It's just not.
Yeah, and that's one of the things they brought up this afternoon with John Hackman, who's the owner of the Huntington Learning Center. He was telling us all about how, you have these kids that are on their iPads, they're on a VR. He was talking about this and how they're missing out on that interaction.
Being creative.
Exactly. They're missing out on the interaction. I mean, how many times have I been out to dinner and see a family at a dinner table and the child is on an iPad?
Drives me crazy.
And I'm thinking,
you can't do that. Having kids at dinner, no phones allowed.
Yeah, but and it almost becomes like the babysitter because they're so laser focused on their iPad that it takes away from the interaction of the family. I mean, I'm half Sicilian, and I'm telling you, I grew up with 16. I grew up with 16 aunts and uncles. I mean, every weekend was, the sauce, the meatballs, sitting around a table, talking as a family. And I completely understand that the family units are not the same. There's a lot of differences from when we were kids, and the dynamic is different. But even if someone has a mentor or sometimes youth are brought up by their grandparents, and that's even a beautiful thing. But regardless of who's responsible for these youth, also has to understand that the interaction and how it affects their development, their development really has an impact on them.
Right. It does. It really does. And we can't, and we've been saying this for years, you can't put all the pressure on the schools. I get it. You send your child to school, but kids learn more at home than they do at school, usually most of the time. They pick up a lot of behaviors and traits and just the way life is from home. And then you have certain kids who have that drive and that ambition, like, I want more. So they kind of try to disconnect themselves from their family, but even that's not completely healthy, right? Because you need family and support. Because, they grow up being very independent, such and stuff. And even though I share that stuff with my mom, like, I still came from a really pretty good family, I really did. That's just the way life happened for me. But even now, knowing my purpose, I'm like, okay, I'm okay to accept that burden because I know what my purpose in life is and what my cause is. So it gives me that fire and the ambition to work with the youth, and I love working with the youth because they're our future.
And that is so incredible because a lot of people, they don't understand their purpose and their mission until so many years pass, and then it's never too late, obviously. And it's never too late. I mean, if you take a look at how your entire path led you to even talking tonight, right?
Yeah.
And
right.
all of the incredible friends that we have, all of the incredible support from the community that we both have, and we both support mental health, behavioral health. We support so much because, like you said, the stigma. It's almost like the place you were talking about. They're shamed for having something that they're trying to overcome.
Right.
And that right. In and of itself isn't right. The people that set that policy should maybe be.
Well, they need to reevaluate. I think it's come from the lack of understanding. So the awareness is part, and the education is very well needed. But even as doctors and stuff, like there's one university, I'm not going to say the name right now, they have so many suicidal deaths when it comes to their collegiate students, but nobody talks about it.
Terrible.
Because you look at doctors and you expect like, oh, they're supposed to always have together, but that's not fair because I'm like, they're human. Why would you expect them to always have it together, but they're human, they're not robots? And a lot of times, you can't even say, hey, I have an issue when you're a doctor because you might not even get your license or might not get it renewed. Because it feels same thing with pilots. And I get it because they're in certain fields that affect so many people, so they're trying to be extra cautious. So I'm not trying to put the hammer and say, oh my God, I can't believe this, organization or whatever that's denying licenses. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm saying is hey, we need to reevaluate what message that we're sending. Because if you're telling them that they can't say or go to see a therapist, and I tell people, I think everybody needs a therapist because everybody experienced some type of traumatic experience in their life. And trauma is anything that changes your perception of the way you view yourself or the way you view society.
Exactly.
Whether somebody says something to you and you're like, whoa. And now you're like, wow, you look at society differently, you look at yourself differently. That's trauma. It's trauma. Therapist needs therapy. I'm planning an event right now in Michigan for next year to speak with women and men, but it's a mental health workshop in Michigan. And I'm working with a therapist out there that has a practice. And, we were talking. She's like, oh, girl, I have a therapist. And I'm like, thank you. We need to keep telling people that therapists have therapists because they're listening to problems all the time. As an HR person, back then I should have had a therapist. I got people coming in my office and sharing stuff. It's heavy. I'm laying people off. I need a therapist back then. But because we're not taught that therapy is okay, we look at it like, oh, no, I can't say I went to a therapist. I don't want to go to a therapist because that means I can't handle it. No, I just need someone to talk to and to help me work through my problems or work through whatever heavy weight or why it bothers me. That's it. I just need someone to help me. I need a coach. I look at therapists as a coach.
Exactly. Maybe that's how we can rebrand it. No.
I think we should. Therapists are like coaches.
Seriously, because they're like a life coach on a different level, right? Yeah. Because I look at some of the cases that I had back in the Department of Forensic Mental Health, and to this day, I look back and that was some really heavy cases that I was involved in, and there's a few cases that completely changed my life forever that catapulted me into making this being my life mission. Seriously.
Oh, I love it.
And
I love it. Yeah.
And I just figured some things are meant to be. I never thought that I was going to wind up in the juvenile justice system. Initially, I thought I was going to use my 2 business degrees and my counseling and doctorate to do corporate counseling, for example. And, someone one day was like, hey, there's an opening at the detention facility, and I was thinking, what am I going to do there? But because it just didn't fit into my initial corporate counseling idea. And what had happened was, I wrote my doctoral dissertation on at-risk youth because when I was looking to come up with an idea as to what to write my doctoral dissertation on, I was just asking my friends, and they're like, why don't you write about these kids getting in trouble? It really, really seems to bother you. So I wrote my doctoral dissertation on at-risk youth and used the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. And then weeks later, I had a friend of mine saying, hey, I want you to meet one of the commissioners for an opening as a child psychologist in the Department of Forensic Mental Health at the detention facility. And I was like, at that very second, a light bulb went off, and I just thought, this is going to be the rest of my life, because you don't have that big of a coincidence.
Right.
And it's been my whole life, and I definitely want to get more involved and on even more than we did last year to help the youth. And now I'm being asked to go to different schools to speak and get involved in their students, and definitely speaking with the Attorney General's office and the Richard Steele Foundation to come up with some great ideas to continue the workshops that we do and elevate what we're doing for the youth in our community. And we're in the planning stages of what we're going to be doing for 2022 right now.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it, because people don't realize that people that get caught up in the juvenile system, and even after they get older past the juvenile, right, and they're in jail, a lot of times they deal with a mental illness. And I'm like, you're so busy worried about putting them in jail or locking them up, but if you kind of understand that it's a mental issue that they're dealing with, and fix that issue, then we won't have to worry about them, all these other crimes that they're doing.
Exactly.
But people are so focused on the crime, and I'm like, no. I always say, ask them why. Find out the why. When you find out the why, then you get to the actual root problem, and now we can make some changes because we can find solutions that are going to fix the actual problem.
And what is your why?
My why is and I said it before, and I'm going to say the same thing, is making sure people know that it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And making sure we are teaching people and educating people and changing society's perception on how they view things, such as what you're doing, right? When we think of juvenile, we think of these kids that are in trouble or doing things that they shouldn't be doing. But if we change our focus from that, obviously that's important, right? But if we change our focus to, why are they doing those things? These kids sometimes come from abused homes. For me, like my mom, because she had a mental illness, we did end up, me and my brother, we ended up getting abused. And we were in a foster care, not for 2 years, but 2 times for a few months, until my dad was able to get full custody. So I'm saying, if you understand, like, the why, and that's why I said, I know this is my purpose. Mm-hmm. Because everything that has happened to me, I could be a completely different person, but I'm not. He's, like, kept his covering, like, there's a reason. And when I found out my why, I'm like, okay, I have accepted all of that. I'm okay with it, because now I'm the person that can understand and can relate and can talk to other people and speak life into people and let people know that it's okay. Because what has happened to you, you get to decide what your future wants to be. But before that person gets to a place where they decide positivity, they need someone who's going to speak positivity into their life, that's not going to judge them. So when it comes to mental health, it's the same thing. They might not realize it's a mental health issue. They're doing things that they should not do is because there's something that's affecting their mental health. And if we can get to their mental health and help them get the therapy, help them to change the way they even see themselves, you'll start to see who they really are, which is not the person who does the crime, but the human being that they are. So I love what you do. I'm so honored to be on your show, to talk to you, to have this experience. Like, I appreciate that you asked me to, like, do this, because this is why I'm here on this earth today, is for this reason.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we all have a purpose, and we all meet for a reason, and we're making a difference together. And I can't thank you enough for supporting Juvenile Justice Impact and the capacity in which you've done in the past. And we're going to obviously continue to support each other. And I know you have your solutions of change. And we can come together and find different ways to help these youth with individuals, help them with individual counseling, their families, their groups. I know that you service children 4 years older in adolescents and adults, and you're working with, I saw here that you're also working with an ABA therapy for children with autism and mental health behavioral diagnoses, and which also includes addictions. And we're two separate companies, so to speak, but we're supporting the same mission, and I just love it.
Yeah, so Solutions of Change, if there's someone that doesn't have insurance or they don't have enough insurance or they're undocumented, like Solutions of Change is definitely an organization to send them to work with, because that's what they do, is they provide those resources, whether it be counseling in a lot of cases, other forms of therapeutic services, right? Because my therapy, I didn't realize then, was basketball. Other forms, and sometimes medication or a combination of one, two, or all three of them, or, so absolutely. I definitely need to connect you with the founder of the nonprofit, which is Denisha Mingle, and we just recently hired an executive director, which is my sorority sister. I have to put it out there, Timothy, my sorority sister. Connect with them so that you could, see how both you guys can be able to work together and continue to support the youth. And I know we just received a grant which is focused on the youth. So it's definitely something that I hope you guys can do together.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's why we're connected. That's why we're talking this evening. And we, once we get offline, we will definitely, we can exchange a few numbers of the people that we're just speaking about, and see how we can definitely make a difference in our incredible community that we live in. And it's just so incredible that we see so much support, isn't it? Community wide.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, and Janice Wiggins, I didn't say her name, but it's Janice Wiggins. I'm like, oh my God, did I say her name? It's our executive director that we just hired, Janice Wiggins. She's helped us, and I'm so sorry, Janice, but she has actually helped us. She's the one that helped Solutions of Change get so much grant money. So I'm so sorry, Janice. I love you.
She's gonna listen to this and you're like, what?
Over $200,000 in grant money.
Nice.
So amazing.
No,
amazing.
Congratulations. I mean, that's just the beginning. I hope you get 10 times more to have that much more of an impact on our community. We're definitely going to be partnering down the road, and showing each other's appreciation for what we do. And I'll always be supporting you and in your missions in the mental health and in what you do in our community. And you're obviously supporting Juvenile Justice Impact, and that's that's how you become successful, because you're willingly supporting people in the community who are like-minded.
Yes. Together we would make a change. Together we would change society's perceptions. Together we would get people what they need, and together we would let people know that it's okay not to be okay. But they just can't unpack their bags and stay there.
I love it. So can we tell people how to see your incredible website and how to get a hold of you if someone wants to email you, call you, check out your website? Can you tell us all about all of your contact information?
Yes. So you can find me at Being, like you're being yourself, because there's no other person to be except yourself. Being TrinaMarie, BeingTrinaMarie.com. That's my website. You can send me a message from there. My phone number is also on that website as well. On Instagram, you can find me personally at being TrinaMarie, same thing. And then, or as my title holder during my reign, you can connect with me at USOA for United States of Americas, USOA Mrs., because I am married, Nevada. So USOA MRSNEVADA.com. Yeah, it's just USA MRS Nevada. And that's the same for both of those. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, and you can find me on TikTok.
Nice. And if anyone wants to send me a message, you can get a hold of me at juvenilejusticeimpact@gmail.com. You can see our website at www.impactjji.com. Or you can call us at 888-JJI-0010. And I just wanted to say, TrinaMarie, it's been an honor to have you. She's an incredible mother. She's an incredible friend. She's making differences in our community. And we're all coming together to work with each other to make an impact on our community. And I love it. I love it. I just appreciate you. We all appreciate you. The community appreciates you and all the youth that you're working with. And just we're all coming together. I love it.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. I truly, truly appreciate you and every single thing that you do.
I'm so full of gratitude, and you're a bright light, and I'm honored to know you, and thank you for that.
Thank you. So remember, sparkle, turning darkness into light.
We're gonna conclude our podcast, but I'm gonna keep you on just for 2 more minutes to ask you just a few more questions, so we can exchange a few other phone numbers. And then thank you for being on. And I can't wait for everyone to hear the incredible things that you're doing with yourself, with your community, with your reign, with the youth, just with everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.